first tonight, Elon Musk, the world's richest man and the man confirmed by Donald Trump to lead a new Department of Government Efficiency, has already set to work. Promising total transparency, he says he'll rank government spending according to how dumb he thinks it is. Mr. Musk, who donated more than $100 million to the president-elect's campaign, will head the advisory body tasked with dismantling bureaucracy, slashing regulations, and restructuring federal agencies. Mr. Trump has described the new department as the new Manhattan Project, which was the U.S. project to develop nuclear weapons in the 1940s. Correspondents say it's an indication of how dramatic he hopes their work will be. Mr. Trump has also pegged Peter Hegseth to be Defense Secretary. There is concern that the new Defense Secretary is a Fox News host who does not appear to have the necessary experience. He's an Army combat veteran who spent the past 8 years working as a presenter on Fox News and has never been in government. Analysts say Mr. Hegseth may run into opposition from senior military leaders and might struggle to have his appointment confirmed in the Senate. They say his appointment is starting to look like a reality TV show. And the South Dakota governor, Christine Noem, is to lead the Department of Homeland Security. Critics say that, particularly with Homeland Security and immigration, Mr. Trump is looking to carry out some of the most draconian immigration enforcement measures ever in America.
You know, you show what matters by your actions, not your words. And my actions are: I'm here, I'm in Pennsylvania, and I'm here for a very important reason. Which is I can't emphasize enough that Pennsylvania is, I think, the linchpin in this election. And this election, I think, is going to decide the fate of America, and along with the fate of America, the fate of Western civilization.
Okay, that was a bit of Elon Musk there during the campaign, and obviously he's getting payment for that contribution that he made to Mr. Trump's victory. Well, US President-elect Donald Trump has met President Biden at the White House for the first time since his election victory. Mr. Biden stressed the need to guarantee a smooth transition, but relations between the two men remain tense. The visit is considered a tradition in the process of transitioning from one president to the next, but it was shunned by Mr. Trump himself in 2020 when he lost the election to the Democrats. Well, for his assessment, I'm joined now on the line from London by the US Republican strategist Greg Swenson. Good to see you. Greg, let me start with that visit to the White House by Donald Trump. I expect, given the strained relations between the two sides, that it would have been a fairly frosty meeting.
Been frosty. I saw a brief clip of it at a TV studio a few minutes ago, but I couldn't really hear the conversation. So. But I do think it looked like they were being polite, they were being cordial, but yeah, I would imagine there's no love lost between the two. And it's interesting, Charles, the last time they saw each other, to my understanding, was June 27th when President Biden had that really difficult debate.
And I mean, you know more about these things than we do, Greg. I mean, you are a Republican strategist. You've been around political circles in America for some time. Are they likely to discuss policy? Because I've heard some analysts suggesting that Mr. Biden might try to push Mr. Trump back to, or rather push him to back Ukraine and maintain U.S. military support to Kyiv, among other things.
Yeah, I would imagine that President Biden will talk about those things because it's important with its transition. You know, I don't think it's wise to wait till, day one on January 20th so I think having those conversations is probably good. I don't think they'll talk about anything particularly heavy because it is open to the press, as you can see on your screen. So I don't imagine they'll be getting too much into it. But I think between now or perhaps in the next few weeks, either the president-elect and current president will have that conversation, or some of their deputies will have those discussions.
And of course, the fear, as you well know, is that after Mr. Trump takes office, the door may close on the provision of U.S. military aid to Ukraine because he opposes what he sees as the indefinite funding of that war.
Yeah, but those are two different things. I think I agree with you. He does oppose the indefinite funding, and I think there'll be some changes, but I don't think it will be an abrupt cutoff of aid to Ukraine. I don't think that's in anyone's interest, including the United States. So, look, I think President Trump was fairly aggressive with Putin back in his first term. He sent Javelin missiles and other lethal weapons to Ukraine, whereas Biden and Obama had not. He sent, he sanctioned Nord Stream 2, the pipeline, during his term. Of course, Biden lifted the sanctions when he took office in early 2021. So, I mean, there are differences between the two. But in most respects, Trump was definitely tougher on Russia and on Putin than Biden was until, of course, the invasion of Ukraine. So, it's unfortunately we can't turn back the clock, but I do think you'll see concessions no matter what from Putin if there's any sort of settlement or agreement. Who knows what they are? He doesn't seem like he wants to take, to negotiate, but I think Trump can get both parties to the table.
Nevertheless, Mr. Trump is set to appoint Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, who shares that view and who has spoken of the need for a negotiated settlement in Ukraine, and who voted against the recent package of U.S. military aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, I think he's, generally speaking, Marco Rubio is very hawkish. He's very hawkish on China. He's hawkish on Russia, always has been. But this is a different moment than 2020 or any time prior to February of 2022. The war has gone on for 2.5 years. So I don't think anybody wants to see, or anybody in the Trump administration anyway, wants to see this go on indefinitely. So, we're unfortunately, we missed our chance to keep Putin from invading. Notice nobody invaded Ukraine during Trump's administration. Both invasions of Ukraine in 2014 and 2022, took place under the Biden's watch, essentially. So, I think we'd love to turn the clock back, but we can't. So we sort of have to deal with this as it is. And if that means concessions from both sides, I hope they can get to an agreement so the killing stops.
Indeed. And of course, someone else who's expected to play a crucial role in such policy is the incoming Pentagon chief. And in the last day or so, Donald Trump announced the nomination of Peter Hegseth, who is an Army veteran and Fox News presenter, as his choice for U.S. Defense Secretary. And he's seen as a surprise choice, isn't he, at a time of sort of all these wars, a man who has little experience and has never been in government.
Yeah, it's a great point, Charles. And I think that's just another example of Trump being a disruptor. I mean, he was a disruptor certainly in his first term, but I think now that he knows Washington, he knows about the bureaucracy and how hard it is to fight the bureaucracy, the entrenched, unelected bureaucrats that make these decisions. I think it's great to bring in an outsider. Pete is, yes, he's coming from Fox News, but he's not coming from some talk show or some game show. I mean, he served his country and served in both Iraq and Afghanistan, I believe. He's a Harvard educated, Princeton educated. So, he's no lightweight at all. And I think he's got a really good view on how to fix things at the Pentagon. New to government doesn't worry me. I think we need more of that, Charles.
And this government, your government, is one that would be uncompromising, it would seem, when it comes to curbing illegal immigration. The president-elect picking Kristi Noem, a longtime hardliner on immigration policy, as Homeland Security Secretary, which, of course, oversees immigration. Yeah, I think he's really choosing people that are aligned with him philosophically, but also that have experience. I mean, she's been a really spectacular governor of South Dakota.
She was really adamant during the COVID crisis about not locking down her state. And of course, her numbers and metrics ended up being better than the states that did lock down. So she took a stand on that. I think that got her a lot of attention. So, usually you wouldn't know the name of the governor of any of the Dakotas, but she's really made a name for herself being an anti-lockdown and also, as you pointed out, Charles, a pretty hard liner on illegal immigration. Look, American politicians that Trump is surrounding himself with are pro-immigration. They're just not pro-illegal immigration because they've seen the human tragedy of these people that are suffering, that try to cross the border, at the hands of human traffickers, drug traffickers. 100,000 people die every year in America from fentanyl that comes over the open border. So I think it's pretty serious stuff, and I think and that's what people voted for.
Well, that's a good point you make there. We'll have to see how she deals with that mass deportation that Donald Trump is planning to carry out. And of course, there is the big fish, Elon Musk. He's been tasked by Donald Trump with leading a new Department of Government Efficiency. What exactly is he going to do?
Well, I think the most obvious is he's going to cut back on the bureaucracy. I mean, there's so much fat in the government right now. It's they spend $7 trillion a year. So much of that is needless and up significantly from only a few years ago. So we need to get back to 2012, 2016 levels of spending. And then, of course, there's the regulatory state, and there's such a regulatory burden on small business and people in America, and so. I think they're going to really dial back the unelected bureaucratic state and try to just get it normalized or right-sized. And I think Elon and Vivek are the two really well-placed people to do it. They're both innovators, obviously, and both really successful at running large organizations. So I think it's a great move, and I hope they can get to work right away.
I mean, but before we let you go, Greg, I mean, do you think some of these nominees might struggle to get their appointments confirmed in the Senate? I mean, some people have raised questions about Peter Hegseth, for example, the Fox News presenter who's been, as you mentioned, nominated as Defense Secretary and who could well, from what we understand, be opposed by senior military leaders.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, I think that there's a case, this might be a case where, we might need even some Democrat votes, but I think this would have been different if the outcome of the election was as predicted, which meant the Republicans pick up 2 Senate seats, that would have been 51-49. That might have been too close to call on some nominees that might need some support across the aisle. But I think in this case, now we have 53 seats. So even with a few defections, I think we can get most of these nominees through the process. But it's a really good point, Charles, and we'll see. And if the military brass don't like them, that's fine. That's because we have civilian oversight of the military in the United States, and it's really important to keep it that way. So if there are senators that had served in the military and they're opposed to it, well, that's going to be a different challenge. But if it's only opposition from within, that's no problem. I think the Senate will pass we'll pass him.
And as always, that's very good analysis from you, Greg. We really appreciate your taking the time to talk to us, because I know you're in hot demand across sort of various television and radio.
It's been a busy.
I can imagine.
It's been a busy few weeks.
So we really appreciate your making out the time to talk to us.
Happy
Greg
to be here.
Swenson is a U.S. Republican strategist. He was talking to me on the line there from London.